Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday signed a law on the denunciation of the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe, CFE, by Moscow. Putin ordered for the treaty to be denounced on May 10, 2023. On May 16, the Russian State Duma voted to denounce the agreement, and on May 24, the Federation Council followed suit. The CFE Treaty, which was signed on November 19, 1990 by all NATO and Warsaw Pact member states, imposed restrictions on the amount of conventional arms and combat equipment its signatories can possess. The agreement came into effect in November 1992, after the breakup of the Soviet Union. In 1999, an updated version of the treaty was signed at the Istanbul Summit of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, to reflect the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact and the expansion of NATO. However, the adapted version was ratified only by Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan and Ukraine. In 2007, Putin signed a decree suspending the country's participation in the CFE until NATO countries ratified the adaptation agreement. At the same time, the West made ratification of the Istanbul Agreement conditional on the dismantling of Russian military bases in Georgia and Moldova. In the end, however, the NATO countries did not ratify it, as the Russian side consistently refused under various pretexts to withdraw its troops from Moldovan territory, Transnistria, or to dismantle the military base in Abkhazia, Gudauta, which is formally part of Georgia. As a consequence of the suspension of the treaty's implementation back in 2007, Russia's denunciation of it is of no practical significance from a military point of view. The Kremlin's decision is purely a political propaganda demonstration. The European Armed Forces Treaty from which Moscow is to withdraw is contrary to Russia's security interests, Russia's envoy in charge of the withdrawal said in remarks published early on Monday. Russia's parliament is to decide on Monday when to formally denounce the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe, CFE, following President Vladimir Putin's decree on May 10. Any illusions of those who still hope that Russia will return to the treaty, they will disappear, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said in an interview with Parliamentskaya Gazeta, a weekly published by Russia's parliament. The CFE treaty, due to the changed situation, is contrary to our security interests. This obvious fact will now have to be recognized in the West. Ryabkov was appointed last week to represent Putin during parliamentary proceedings on denouncing the treaty, which aimed to regulate the number of forces deployed by Warsaw Pact and NATO countries. Russia announced in 2015 that it was completely halting its participation in the treaty.